Good morning. Welcome to our presentation on measuring learning outcomes in healthcare administration programs. My name is Lisa Wicklund. I'm a client engagement specialist, and presenting with me today is Laura Miller, the Director of Client Engagement here at Peregrine. Do you wonder if learners are acquiring the knowledge, gaining the skills, and attaining the competencies that your program and curriculum intended to deliver? Comprehensive assessment is the path forward because what is measured can be improved. It is because of the challenge of assessment at the programmatic level that we are here today. In this presentation, you will learn how you can use our online customizable exams as a solution to gather actionable data on student learning and attainment of knowledge. The exams are then used to assess the strengths and opportunities for improvement of our healthcare program, along with meeting AUPHA and CAHME certification requirements as they relate to measuring learning outcomes and assurance of learning. You can't manage what you don't measure. W.E. Deming is considered by many to be the founding guru of the continuous improvement process. His plan, do, check, act, also recognized as the PDCA cycle, is used by businesses and non-business entities across the globe. Now, what you see here is the process that was developed by W.E. Deming and has been adapted for higher education institutions. We often use this as a starting point to look at the process of continuous improvement for student learning. We start with the plan stage. In this stage, you plan ahead to understand what you want to achieve by identifying your objectives and learning outcomes and specify your assessment processes. This stage will guide you to your end goal. The do stage is next. Here, you execute your plan, make changes slowly, as well as collect data. Collecting data allows you to not only improve, but to later understand why the output improved by the changes you implemented. The check stage is where you are analyzing and sharing your data begins. Did your outcomes match your predictions? Did they improve or not improve? And what have you learned? The final stage and closure of the loop is act. Here, you will take action based on what you learned in the check stage to plan new improvements and begin the cycle again.
The first part of the process Lisa mentioned was the plan stage. This is the stage where you will identify and write your learning outcomes. You will also need to decide how to evaluate whether or not your students are meeting those outcomes. What is a learning goal? According to Catherine Martell, learning goals are the product of faculty reflection on the skills, attitudes, and knowledge that they expect students to learn as a result of matriculating through their institution's programs. They are the roadmap for the curriculum and are the foundation on which the assessment program is built. However, learning goals are broad and not sufficiently specific and observable to be measured. Goals are broad, general, and difficult to measure. Therefore, based on the goals, learning outcomes or objectives are written. Learning outcomes are specific and measurable. An example of a written learning outcome is students will be able to explain how exercise affects stress, for example. Learning outcomes are commonly written according to Bloom's original 1956 taxonomy of educational objectives, which identified the following levels of cognitive learning: knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. Well-written learning outcomes usually involve the following parts: an action verb, subject content, level of achievement, condition of performance if applicable. Learning outcomes should also have a measurement rubric associated with the objective.
Assessment, direct and indirect measures. Before we dig into the ins and outs of assessment, I think it's helpful to define assessment. Assessment is the systematic collection, review, and use of information about educational programs undertaken for the purpose of improving student learning and development. During our discussion today, we're going to talk mostly about assessment practices within continuous quality improvement processes, including how direct measures are different than indirect measures of student learning, and methods can be used for direct and indirect measures. To some, the difference between the formative assessment and the summative assessment is unclear. To put it simply, it is course versus program level assessment. Course level or formative is very important to each faculty person or instructor so they can evaluate learning at the course level. It helps students recognize where they stand within a course and is used to improve teaching. For example, I could find through formative assessment that my students are struggling with a concept or skill. Then I would look at how that specific element was covered in my course and make the necessary changes and adjustments to improve learning outcomes. Program or summative level assessments usually happen at the end of the unit of study. It is used for accountability at the program level and as a tool for improvement in the program. This could include a pre and post-test format to demonstrate added value of the program, and it is used to measure integrated or retained knowledge to ensure that students are graduating with the good retained skills before they start their career. Recently, we worked with a school that found their students were not retaining knowledge related to macroeconomics within their business program. After digging into the data, we found that the students take the class at the beginning of the program, and those concepts are not really introduced again. Therefore, it gives the school an opportunity to adjust the program to ensure that the concepts related to macroeconomics are embedded throughout and reinforced regularly in their program. DEAC Standard 2A calls for institutions to demonstrate a commitment to their educational offerings and administrative operations through processes that monitor and improve institutional effectiveness. Student learning can be measured using several methods. The methods are commonly grouped into two categories: direct and indirect measures. Best practices recommend the use of both direct and indirect measures when determining the degree of student learning that has taken place.
Best practices in assessing learning outcomes include clearly articulate what you expect students to learn in your outcomes. Find and administer a systematic, well-documented assessment process. Incentivize end-of-program assessments. Assessments that are not required and do not have points or a grade associated with them do not generally have satisfactory student participation, and therefore the results may not demonstrate what your students actually know. Assessment results must provide convincing evidence that students are achieving learning outcomes. Assessment results are used to inform decision-making and program improvement. There is no reason to assess your students if you're not going to use the results to improve their learning and the effectiveness of your program. Indirect measures include surveys, interviews, course evaluations, and reports on retention, graduation, and placement, etc. They provide a view of student learning based on the attitudes, perceptions, feelings, and values of students. These measures imply student learning and help to substantiate instances of student learning. Of course, these measures are commonly in conjunction with direct measures of student learning, such as assessment. What should we do to obtain indirect assessment? And how to design the survey correctly. So you should design it to be short, ideally less than 10 questions. To increase the response rate, you can add it to an assessment, such as Peregrine's assessment. It's something that we offer, and then we'll talk about further in this presentation. Utilize a third party. Surveys conducted by a third party seem to get more honest responses. And incentivize student surveys. If it's not embedded within, for example, a Peregrine assessment, you might need to incentivize it in another way, such as giving them a prize or some kind of reward for completing it. I know a lot of institutions really struggle with getting participation with their surveys.
Now we ask ourselves, what should we be asking? A Likert scale is defined as a unidimensional scale that researchers use to collect respondents' attitudes and opinions. The items in Likert scale are focused directly on measuring people's opinions and answered in a range of values. Some examples are, were your courses offered frequently enough for timely completion of the degree? Were the courses taught well? Was the program of study challenging or stimulating? Did the student understand the application of learning objectives? Was the curriculum relevant to their academic or professional needs? Were they adequately prepared to satisfactorily complete the course? Did they meet with their advisor? Open-ended questions are free-form survey questions that allow respondents to answer in open text format so they can answer based on their complete knowledge, feeling, and understanding. It means that the response to the question is not limited to a set of options. Some examples are, what did they like best about their academic experience? What did they like least about their academic experience? And, or, what would they change about their academic experience? Analyzing your data, sharing results, and making changes is the check and act part of the continuous improvement process. Let's dig into what it means to look at the data. Peregrine Global Services provides higher education institutions with programmatic assessments that include a variety of reports and data that schools use for continuous improvement activities. In this particular example, we have outbound scores, also referred to as a post-test, that came from an assessment at the end of a healthcare administration program. Peregrine allows for institutions to benchmark against aggregates at the topic and subject level. The blue bars in the chart is the institution scores compared to the located in the US aggregate. As you can see, this school is outperforming the located in the US averages in all but one of the topic subjects. Although they are showing that they are outperforming, it is helpful to look at the data in another way to continue to look for areas of improvement. Our longitudinal report allows you to see how your program changes have an impact on your outbound scores. Ideally, you would like to see a steady increase of scores overall in each of those topic areas.
One of the added value benefits that Peregrine provides to its clients is the ability to add a student survey to their knowledge-based assessments. The great thing about this is if you require the exam at the end of the academic program, you can achieve a 100% response rate for your healthcare administration students completing the assessment. This is because the survey is embedded within the exam and the students must complete the survey before they can begin the exam questions. The surveys are customizable and may include any combination of Likert, radio button, checkbox, and open-ended style questions. The results of the survey can be seen in a PDF or Excel report at any time. The student survey gives you an indirect measure of your learning outcomes and includes the student's perception of your program. Once you have assessed your students and you have the data, it's important to share this information. All assessment processes should have a method for how results are shared with faculty and program directors and how you communicate challenges and successes. It is important to celebrate success and repeat the processes where students are excelling in the areas where they are not. Your assessment data should come with recommendations for improvement, be accompanied by historical data, just as you saw in the longitudinal analysis example previously. And you must consider data outside the assessment process too, including faculty qualifications, budget, and other indicators that could impact your results. We can't say this enough. When you make changes to your program based on the assessment data you collect, you need to track how those changes impact your program and evaluate if they work. Most changes do lead to improvement, but not always. When a change is ineffective, you will need to try something else. Remember that assessment data must be evaluated over time. and changes should not be made based on a single administered assessment. Assessment should be administered consistently over time and trends identified in your data before you decide to make changes. Once you implement changes, you'll need to reevaluate your results in subsequent testing periods. Again, if a change is ineffective, you will need to modify or replace what you're doing. Now that we have our learning outcomes, we know how we are going to measure them. The next step is to carry on in the continuous improvement process. Although it should be mentioned that this process is iterative and not supposed to be a line that we cross in a race. This is an ongoing process. Here is another graphic we like to use to show the continuous process that is assurance of learning. Peregrine solutions to help build a quality culture. For those of you who may not know, Peregrine's home base is in Wyoming, but we have a global impact. It is our mission to make a difference in the world by improving the quality of higher education. We serve over 500 institutions worldwide. In our 11 years in the academic world, over 1 million assessments have been completed, and we are on our way to 2 million.
Healthcare and higher education are embracing the use of data for quality improvement. The challenge is finding the right assessment tool that is flexible, comprehensive, and affordable with an external comparison that corresponds to the program. Today's healthcare profession involves 3 distinct yet closely interrelated domains: professionalism and ethics, what the professional must be; knowledge of the healthcare system and how to think critically, conduct analysis, and perform problem solving within the workplace, what the professional must know; and the workplace actions related to communications, leadership, and interpersonal effectiveness, what the professional must do. The role of higher education is to develop healthcare professionals who consistently demonstrate excellence within the be, know, do competency-based construct. Data is needed to ensure continuous quality improvement of the academic programs related to each of these be, know, do domains. The know domain can be assessed using standardized testing where student knowledge levels are measured at the start of their program and then again at the end of the program to directly measure their knowledge gained. School officials are expected to make changes to their educational programs based on objective data using student learning goals and competency level attainment. Competency-based assessment allows program directors to transform opinions into actionable facts that can be used to continuously improve the quality of their program. Such assessment ensures that continuous improvement of healthcare administration and management programs is being undertaken. It also ensures that programs are transparent and accountable by specifically stating what students should be able to do at the end of the educational program. Peregrine's customizable solution is easily managed and can effectively be integrated into any healthcare administration program. The assessment solution is specifically designed to address programmatic accreditation and certification requirements related to learning outcomes and competency-based assessments, quality assurance, and external academic benchmarking. What is Peregrine's objective? To provide a meaningful, cost-effective, and practical solution to the evaluation of programmatic learning outcomes, to allow you to compare programs' results to one or more external aggregate pools, to allow you to conduct internal analysis of your program, to directly measure a retained student knowledge, and finally, to address accreditation requirements. Peregrine's Healthcare Administration Assessment Solution is designed to address many AUPHA and CAHME certification requirements related to learning outcomes, quality assurance, direct measurement, and programmatic evaluation. With Peregrine, you will build your own assessment. First, you will determine your learning outcomes and align them with appropriate topics available from our Healthcare Administration test bank. The assessment is customizable at the topic level and can be integrated with your LMS or delivered through an external school-branded microsite. Your student results and reports will be at your fingertips via our client admin portal, and you will be able to benchmark your scores against aggregate pools containing other institutions' results.
Curriculum objectives and accreditor requirements form the foundation of the topics and subjects available in our assessments. The Healthcare Administration Assessment allows you to select from 23 topics, and each topic is comprised of 6 to 12 subjects. Test bank questions for each subject area are used to assess foundational knowledge levels and retain knowledge and are aligned with the academic program's specific learning outcomes. Each exam consists of a random selection of 10 questions per topic. Therefore, we recommend that you are selective in choosing your topics, with 8 to 12 topics or 80 to 120 questions per exam. If you choose all 23 topics, for example, you could potentially have a 230 question exam. The topics are sorted by their respective domain and include the communications and relationship management and leadership domains shown here. As well as the domains of professionalism and knowledge of the healthcare environment, there are topics related to the business knowledge and skills domain. Peregrine places a high priority on ensuring the validity and reliability of its assessment services. For specifics concerning Peregrine's exam reliability procedures, the peer-reviewed article entitled Determining Test Bank Reliability describes our methodology and is available on our website for download. All assessment items are validated and peer-reviewed. Regular psychometric analysis of the test banks ensure reliability and accuracy. Exam difficulty is relative. The service assesses retained knowledge of the students at the program level using normed instrumentation. When conducting the psychometric analysis of the test bank, the principal measures of reliability are item difficulty, item discrimination, and question interchangeability.
As previously mentioned, you can easily and readily integrate your assessment into any academic program and most learning management systems with flexible purchase options, and we can integrate with most commonly used LMS platforms. Options for delivery of the exam to the students include a school-specific microsite that is password protected for self-registration by student, technical integration with the LMS or automated registrations and gradebook postings. Our solutions can be purchased through the bookstore, institutional purchase with monthly invoicing, or learner purchase through self-registration. The assessment solution is typically included within a course. The inbound exam is normally included in an introductory course early in the academic program, or in some cases, taken by students as an admission requirement. Completion of the outbound exam is generally administered in the semester right before graduation from the program, often included in a capstone course. Schools can choose how often and when they will assess their students. Some institutions only test at the end of a program. However, others will assess 3 times throughout the program. The most common practices is an inbound and outbound approach, which is equivalent to a pre-post-test approach to assessment. In this approach, students complete an inbound exam early in the program and then an outbound exam toward the end of the program. The comparison of inbound and outbound exam scores is the direct measure of learning. Analysis of those results is used for evaluating learning outcomes.
Did anybody have any questions? If you do, please post them in the chat. I'll just give you a few moments to think about what you might want to ask and type it in. Or you can raise your hand. Yes, we can definitely send out copies of the PowerPoint. In fact, we will do that when the webinar is completed. We'll send it out to everyone who participated today.
I see a question from Leslie. What about having your students complete the assessment midway through?
So we do have a midpoint assessment as well. And some institutions using the healthcare administration assessment are doing that. It helps just give you kind of a milepost as far as where students are at, how much they've improved from the inbound, and maybe what needs to be focused on for the rest of the program. That assessment is usually, identical to the inbound and the outbound. So you have that direct measure, an apples to apples comparison from the time they begin the program, partway through, and then right before they graduate.
Okay, and then Leslie also asked if there was, as another data point. Okay, so that's the continued of that. John Cantiello, I think I'm pronouncing that right. In addition to the inbound exam test question, are faculty given access to all of the possible questions that could be offered on the exam so that they can incorporate that material into their courses?
No, we do not release the questions in our test bank for, to protect the integrity of our test bank. However, we have an exam summary that provides detailed information on the domains and the subjects covered within each of those that can help you understand exactly what's being covered. We're also developing an even more detailed exam summary that's going to provide example questions for every single one of the subjects covered. So that will be coming out soon. The current exam summary is a little bit more limited in the amount of detail that it has. And also you have the opportunity, if you're not a client, to actually go through the assessment as a guest registration. And then if you are already a client, we can give you faculty access to go through the assessment yourself using the topics that you've chosen for your institution.
We have a few more here. Please describe the costs.
Well, we have a base price of $45 per exam, but it depends on the volume of your institution and what you intend to do for the year. So we do have multiple discount levels that can be taken into consideration. Also, as Lisa mentioned in one of the previous slides, we have multiple payment methods available. So if you're going to use the inbound, midpoint, and outbound construct, or just the inbound and outbound, some institutions will have the students bear the cost of the inbound assessment. As part of their admission costs, they just will take that assessment and pay for it. And then if they work through the entire program and they get to the outbound assessment, then the school will bear the cost of that. And I also see another question about viewing their scores. If you elect to have the students receive their scores on the inbound and outbound scores, they will receive a certificate that has a detailed analysis of how they performed over the entire exam, not by question, but broken down to the subject level. Dr. Crosby, I see that you would like information on the midpoint, so I will reach out to you on that.
Do you have to ask all 10 questions related to the 23 topics for the survey assessment to be valid?
Well, there are some institutions using the healthcare administration assessment that are not using all 10 questions. The problem with that, you can do that. The problem with that is the majority of the institutions in our aggregate pool that you're benchmarking against are using all 10 questions. So it slightly skews the comparison. If you're okay with that and you take that into consideration when you're benchmarking, yes, you can reduce the number of questions. It is customizable.
What is the total range of academic areas addressed by Peregrine?
Peregrine covers multiple types of programs. We cover healthcare administration, we cover business, accounting, general education, public administration, criminal justice, and early childhood education.
Can someone discuss how the achievement levels were determined on the healthcare administration assessment? In other words, why is a certain level of achievement tied to a particular numeric score on the exam or exams?
Well, the threshold of what constitutes success on an assessment is determined by looking at the benchmarking, but is also determined on an internal level. The purpose of the results and the assessment itself is to provide measurements for improvement. So it's not as important what the score is as it is that you are achieving some improvement from period to period. So the assessment informs you what your scores are, and then you're going to identify areas that you want to make changes in or improve in, and then you're going to work towards improving them. The external benchmark is really is a way to just compare, how other schools are doing. We don't have a specific success level. It just depends on as the aggregates average appears.
And the last one is, how can I find out if our program was elected to make exam results available to students or not?
Well, you can reach out to us. You can email us at clientservices@peregrineglobal.com, and we can look that up for you. I will note that the inbound assessments by default do not show them their score. And the outbound assessments by default do show them their score. So if your institution hasn't made any specific requests regarding the assessment results, that is how it is.
That's it on questions for now.
Oh, I see one more.
Oh.
So we do have one healthcare administration test bank, and it's separated out between the different programs. So when you're, if you have an undergraduate program, you're going to benchmark against other undergraduate programs. Peregrine has been working on adding additional topics to the healthcare administration assessment, and we also are going to be separating those in the future. So right now, it is a combined test bank, but going forward, probably beginning in spring 2022, we will be differentiating those test banks. Any other questions? Okay. All right, now back to the be and do related competencies. Assessing the be and do domains of the healthcare professional involves approaches that include objective observation of the assessed individual by others who are familiar with that person. Relative skill level of the do related competencies and how the individual demonstrates their professionalism and ethics of the be related competencies can be evaluated from the perspective of others who regularly interact with the assessed individual and can make an objective assessment of the person's competency level. This is where Peregrine's Value Skills Workplace Skill Assessment is useful. This 360-degree process can provide more meaningful evaluation and feedback compared to a self-assessment because it is from the perspective of others. Colleagues, workplace supervisors, or team members, peers, and faculty can all provide objective assessment of the individual enrolled in your healthcare program, provided that the assessment instruments are designed and implemented in an objective and consistent manner. Why assess soft skills? Well, to assess competency requirements for program accreditation, to help satisfy employer expectations for career-ready graduates, to demonstrate the NACE career readiness competencies, and to provide students with actionable feedback for continued skill development. What makes the value skills unique? 360-degree assessments have been around for a while. The value skills offers flexible, customizable assessment instruments, standardized rubrics for all assessment items to improve objectivity and consistency, an administrative site to manage the process, group reports to determine developmental needs, student action plans to sustain strengths and improve weaknesses, and the ability to use a pre-test, post-test construct with longitudinal analysis to directly measure change and student development.
With the value skills, you will build your assessment. The platform offers a vast menu of almost 300 assessment items to select from. These items are the individual soft skills you want to assess, such as adaptability, change leadership, emotional intelligence, dependability, innovation, critical thinking, etc. To create your assessment, you can choose from available pre-made instrument templates, or you can create your own. You will have the ability to choose response types such as Likert type responses with a rubric, open-ended items, or a combination of both. You will also have the ability to write your own assessment items, either open-ended or closed-ended, and mix them with the items from the Value Skills platform. Each soft skill in the database is assessed on a 5-point Likert type scale, where each rating on the scale is associated with the corresponding rubric and sample behavior description. Each person evaluating a participant refers to the rubrics and sample behaviors, reducing subjectivity. The rubrics are also school officials to measure items that are typically considered elusive. The administrative website allows the assessment manager to create and manage instrumentation, see and track progress, and generate reports. There is also flexibility in choosing evaluators. You can either assign evaluators for each student, have the student identify their own evaluators, or use a combination of both. You can create and manage multiple assessment instruments at one time to address the specific needs of different groups of students. The value skills also includes in-depth reports. A student report includes a template for an individual action plan. The student scores can be compared to the group scores as a relative indicator of strengths and weaknesses. When students conduct a self-assessment, they can compare those scores with the test results from the evaluator in a side-by-side view on the student report. A group report summarizes all results and is used to determine group strengths and weaknesses. It can also help identify areas for improvement for individuals scoring significantly below the group average. The important thing is to not stop to questioning, and if I could say that right, the important thing is not to stop questioning. Does anybody else have any more questions?
Okay, I'm not seeing any questions. Before you all go, I wanted to offer to all of you our Assurance of Learning workbook. It is available for download on our website. So if you're interested in having this workbook that actually it's going to give you more information about what we've covered here regarding creating learning outcomes and using assessment for evaluation and continuous improvement. So it is available for download on our website. And if you're interested, please put it in the chat and we will, along with a copy of this PowerPoint, we can send you the link to download this workbook. I do see a couple of questions came in about evalu skills. So let me take a look at those. So I will tell you, we've had a couple of healthcare programs recently adopt evalu skills, and we have one that's getting ready to adopt it for a new healthcare program. So far, they have liked the assessment and the reports available. The great thing about evalu skills is it gives you insight into the personal and professional development of your students. So if you're needing to, which obviously everybody's needing to turn out career-ready graduates, this is important. And in healthcare, especially the soft skills and behavior skills evaluated by evalu skills are of utmost importance. I'll also say if you would like a reference or contact information for some of the programs, healthcare programs that have used evalu skills, we'd be happy to reach out to them and see if they'd be willing to share with you their experience. Okay, well, to close this out, the mission of Peregrine Global Services is to develop values-based leaders and impact the quality of higher education throughout the world. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for all of your participation in the chat. We will be reaching out to all of you with the PowerPoint, and also for those of you who want it, the download to the Assurance of Learning workbook. Oh, and I see someone asked about cost for evalu skills. Evalu skills is exactly the same as our knowledge-based assessment. There is no difference in cost, and it is also based on all services used by your institution across the board. So if you're using multiple assessment types or any of our other services, that's all taken into consideration when deciding your discount level. Okay. Looks like everyone is filing out now. I'll just wait a few more minutes in case anyone thinks of anything before they're all gone.